Hey loves, welcome to The Quick Tip.
I'm your host, DeJada.
And I'm Camesha, and we are a part of the team at Sister Afia Community Mental Wellness in Chicago. The Quick Tip is a podcast where we discuss relatable topics in Black women's mental wellness.
We provide thoughtful reflections, quick tips, and leave you with some things to take action on to improve your mental wellness.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy the podcast.
Welcome back to the Quick Tip Podcast. I'm Camesha.
I'm DeJada.
And I'm Chanell.
We are doing our first episode in the Black Family series. So we're going to be talking about everything from generational curses to blessings to supporting single mothers, parenting. And today we are so honored to speak with Chanell about supporting our Black girls. Black girls' mental health is an issue that is hiding in plain sight. Black girls are experiencing mental health conditions at a rising and alarming rate, but many institutions and people are falling short of providing them with the care they need to live full lives. Today, we are fortunate to have Chanell, who's a leading clinician in Black girls' mental health, to share about her experience caring for Black girls' mental health and what we need to do as a community to make sure that our girls live healthy and thriving lives. Chanell is a school social worker, and she's the founder and owner of Teen and Co Wellness and Consulting. She is a mental health maven and clinical social worker who is from California. Her professional journey began with receiving her Bachelor's of Arts in Sociology with a minor in Health Sciences from California State University. And after that, she went on to get her Master's in Social Work and Clinical Licensure in Chicago. And now Chanell lives in Houston, Texas, and she is a champion of adolescent health and teens, having all the tools they need to thrive. Her passion pushes her to continue to advocate, challenge, and educate on mental health in our community and schools. Chanell, welcome to the Quick Tip Podcast.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for having me.
So, Chanell, I know you a little bit, but if you could share with us just who you are and like what inspired you to want to focus on Black girls' mental health.
So, as you said, I am from the great state of California. Now, I'm actually residing in Dallas, Texas, but I lived in Chicago for about 8 years. And I like to tell people, like, when they do career preparation and sort of thing, like, I did not go to school to be a therapist. I did not go to school to be a licensed clinical social worker. I didn't really like kids growing up, and just the trajectory that God has just kind of switched my life. It's such a blessing. But it started, through my own trauma and my own healing process as a young Black girl to a Black adolescent, to a Black teen, and now to a great Black woman. So now is my mission, because of my life and my testimony, to kind of just push our community and push mental health so we can get the best help that we need for our children, primarily our Black girls.
I appreciate you sharing that. Can you tell us some of the top issues Black girls are facing and how they are coping with these issues?
Oh, Lord. Pre or post pandemic, because I actually was working on a presentation, and it seems like just the pandemic the last 3 years have kind of switched the trajectory in the things that they're dealing with and really how they're coping with it. So, of course, they're dealing with over-sexualization of their bodies. They're dealing with I wouldn't say sexualization, but overalization of their attitudes. Because, say angry Black women or Black girls just have attitudes.
Yes.
They're in their minority and they're a woman. So it's a double minority. So they're given expectations that they should not have. And when they cannot meet these expectations that are given to them from society, from social media, from our own community, then they're left kind of trying to navigate. And they're coping through fighting, coping through promiscuous behaviors, coping through depression, anxiety. In the last 3 years, suicidal ideation and suicidal completion has risen all the way to the top. It used to be like, well, Black people don't complete suicide. Black people, we don't do that. Yes, they do. And it's coming to the forefront with weed, Molly, and other type of drugs and alcohol. and really just depression and anxiety. That's how our Black girls are being pushed to cope right now. And it's kind of saddening, but there's people like me all over just trying to work and trying to help them get the best care that they can so they can be great women in our society.
Wow. And so, like, what do you think post-pandemic, how do you think that the community or mental health organizations, schools, because schools is kind of like family. You spend most of your time at school. How are schools responding to the issues that Black girls are facing?
So schools, like before, post-pandemic, there's still the criminalization of our Black girls in schools. Monique has a really good book and documentary called, and I implore everybody to read it and look at it, called the criminalization of Black girls, meaning that they're the top to be suspended, expelled for little things because of their mental health and how they react, right? Well, now I will say they are trying, schools, even with funding being lost, schools are trying to incorporate more social workers. They're trying to collaborate with other outside entities, like in Houston, Legacy Community Health is one that actually having school-based centers on campus to be able to give the therapy that our Black children or our Black girls need to help with the overload, because the school social workers, the school mental health clinicians, the school student support, it's hard, it's taxing. I've been in the school systems for about 13 years. It's a lot for one person to do. So schools are trying to, and school districts are trying to incorporate mental health days. So I know Illinois has incorporated a law, you can have 5 mental health days. And here in Texas, I'm seeing more advertising and more coming together for school social workers and school mental health clinicians on campus, as well as partnering with outside agencies and nonprofits to bring in mentorships and therapy as well.
Wow.
Thank you for sharing that, Chanell. I've worked in schools before as a school social worker, and it is a lot of things that young people are going through, and especially our girls. And we need a coordinated effort, like you're talking about, to make sure that they're getting the care that they need from people who really want to be intentional to support them and not criminalize them or all those other stigmas that can come out in our communities and in the school system. So one thing I want to talk about is what happens at home. So how are families and caregivers, how are they contributing to the development of Black girls, and how can things that are happening at home impact Black girls' mental health?
Well, I will start with a positive. I will say that it's getting better than where maybe you and I grew up. I'm 35 years old, and when I was growing up, mental health was a big taboo. It was a topic we did not talk about. Even if we will see, we weren't really educated. So now people, I would say in the last 10 years, have been trying to educate the Black community and advocate and break the silence of what it means for mental health to help our children. But I will say, going back from the early 80s during the crack era into the 90s into the 2000s and now, that has kind of broken up the Black home, and the trajectory and the gender roles have changed from like more Black women having to take care of their families. So now they're being outside their home and they're not able to cultivate their families as much as before, say with our parents, our grandparents, our great grandparents. So our Black girls are being left more alone. So they're being more left alone to now take the vices of the streets, the vices of the school, the vices of social media. The boom of social media has created a whole nother type of level of concern, from insecurities to now the BBL bloom to the being social media addictions and fighting and looking at the people up and down and wanting to be like them. And now I am changing who I am and who I know I could be to look like this Instagram model who's really just using a filter and not really even looking like that. Mm-hmm. So the insecurities are blooming, a blossom. Again, we over sexualize our Black girls, right? We start calling them fast. These are all community things that we have to be accountable for. And then we don't even want to go into the trauma having to see maybe abuse in a family, the trauma of having things swept underneath the rug, say Uncle John was touching on somebody, and we all know Uncle John, and Uncle John was still allowed to sit at the Thanksgiving table. So now so now our child could be promiscuous behaviors because they're trying to emulate or see what the door was open when they were younger. So if they come up pregnant or with STI, then we're now holding them to a whole certain standards, and when it really wasn't their fault. So these are things that are happening in our families, and we're not really taking responsibility to break the generational curses that are being passed down, even up into the slavery and the African diaspora happening then, from women just supposed to have our babies and supposed to just be at home. And more girls are saying, well, I want to, I might want to go into STEM. I might want to go to college. I might want to go into the Aviation Air Force. And it's like, no, your role is supposed to be at home, taking care of the kids and taking care of home. So that could add another pressure. And all this is just adding trauma, adding pressure, adding insecurities on our Black girls who are not really mentally able to handle it, right? Because our brain doesn't really develop until about 25, 26. So now they have overload, overstimulation, family things, trauma, and then you're expecting this girl to act how you should want her to act, with no issues, no anxiety, no depression, no suicidal ideation, no sexual promiscuity, anything like that. And it's just not true.
I didn't think this would be such a hard topic for me to cover. But like you speaking on these things, I'm just like, wow, I can relate. And at 25, it's hitting me, like I'm like, and it's simple things. Like I was touched as a child and I would tell the adult and they would do nothing. And so as an adult, I was recently in that situation, and to me, I'm like minimizing it because it's just it's a couple touches with my clothes on, and we're in a business setting. So maybe it's not, I'm invalidating this experience, or I'm like, maybe I shouldn't bring this up to, someone else. Because when I was a child, I wasn't heard. And I'm thinking at 25, I won't be heard either. But I was heard, and that felt crazy because I was still, even though I was heard by someone else, I was still invalidating my own feelings. And I'm in therapy now, but something that I'm learning is that like I created coping mechanisms at such a young age dealing with this, but now at 25, those same coping mechanisms, they don't work the same. You know what I'm saying? Like now it's unhealthy it's always unhealthy to bottle this in or not tell anyone or just any negative coping mechanisms. And now I'm learning like is detrimental to me as a person, to my health, to my mental health. And just talking about this subject, I'm like, there has to be more that we can do for these girls than say, hey, let's put them in therapy. Like, because in therapy, you can talk about it and you can learn skills that can help you in the future. But it's like, what can I do to help me now? How can we ensure that girls are getting support outside of therapy? Like what things can be put in place in health classes? Because I know those are being taken away. So like, what's something that we can do to meet them where they are and not have them have to travel to a different neighborhood to get these resources or need internet connection? Like, how can we meet these girls where they are to help them build skills and know that they are supported and loved? Here we are I know I keep talking, I'm asking questions, but I'm gonna stop right there. I'm gonna go ahead and let y'all sit with or answer the questions that I just asked.
Well, I first want to say thank you for sharing. And I would like to tell you that I'm 35 years old. And I just had a conversation with my mother last week about the things that she did because we grew up in church, and that's a whole nother conversation. But the things that she did for me as a child, fed into my insecurities about my body, where I didn't wear shorts. I
Right.
didn't feel comfortable wearing shorts. I've always felt like I had to be in the gym working out because of the things, you're developing early, and the things that she and my grandmother put on me then, that I had to wear clothes is 3, 4 sizes too big because they didn't want people to look at my body at 12 or 13 years old. The diets that they put me on because they thought that I was getting bigger. The hospital experiments that I had to go through, because why is she developing fast at 10 years old? Those things that I had to carry with me through my 20s and my 30s. And now I'm trying to unpack and be comfortable in my own body and what it looks like to be a Black woman and shapely girl. I just had a conversation with her about 3, 4 weeks ago about what she did, how she made me feel, and had it fed into my emotional intelligence, my self-worth, and my self-esteem. And she apologized actually, and then she told me about some of the things the church and it means community, because she was saying, well, people thought people were touching on you because you were getting breast at 9 years old, and the Bible says, and we were taught. So she did apologize, and I accepted her apology, and that helped me move forward and now being free. But these are the things, right, in our communities and that we need healing from, and that we need. So for me, when you say, what do we do for the Black girls? I know I personally always try to create a safe space, especially at my school, creating a safe space in my office that I'm able to uplift, empower, affirm, encourage, love them. I tell them I love them. I tell them I hug them. I affirm them. I have one group of girls, Black girls, that came in, like 2 or 3 of them, that would come in every morning, and like we'll read a devotional, and like I had them read like a book of a saying every day. So I had one student who didn't even say a word. She'll just come in, knock on the door, and hug me, and then leave back out. So those are the things that I know I'm doing outside of being a clinician, outside of trying to get organizations to come in and do groups and do supervision and do individual therapy. But me as a Black woman, and I'm trying to do is trying to uplift. I don't comment on their body. I don't comment on what they're wearing unless it's just something outrageous, unless you come to school because there's a dress code. But always trying to affirm, like, okay, I see you with your hair. What other color it might be? Blue, red, green, purple, whatever it is. Okay, I see you with your outfit, trying to affirm them if they're queer or whatever it is. So those are the things, because of what I experienced. I don't want them to have to wait until they're in their 30s and have to struggle through their teens and 20s because of those coping mechanisms and those things that they go through, that they're still trying to fight, like myself. So those are the things that Chanell Hill is doing outside of Miss Hill, the clinician. But always trying to create a safe space to uplift, to love, and making sure that when I start my family soon, that I incorporate those things in my household and break those generational curses to help if I have Black girls.
Right. Did you have something to say, Camesha?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I was just going to say thank you all for sharing about your personal journeys as Black girls to Black women. There are so many of us who have experienced very difficult things, some of which you all mentioned, that we're still carrying with us today, and we're still healing. And some of us have been able to get to the other side, which I think is beautiful. On that note, I do want to ask about approaches that you see are working. So Chanell, like you talked about, uplifting, empowering, affirming, telling Black girls that like you love them. What are some approaches that you see, from your experience, that are working to support Black girls?
So those are my approaches too. Just letting them know that I hear you, I see you, I value you, I love you, I am here for you. Those are the things that I am really trying to incorporate just in my life, in my attitude, as well as emulate what a Black woman could be, what I could be, because there's so many variations of us, right? So what Chanell is and how I carry myself as a woman and how I want them to carry themselves, being free, being unique, being who you are, but still, having to switch in the professional world and still being, you, like, I can't wait till like next month I'm about to get some purple braids for vacation. I'm like excited. So those are things that approaches that I try to get my girls. And in that, I'm also holding them accountable for how they should have, what do you want to be perceived as, and how you can walk in it. If you don't want to be perceived as the angry child all the time, or the promiscuous black girl, or this black girl, okay, how can we change that? And is there something going on that we need to heal from, or we need to seek out and see, so we can be what we want to be, but not stagnate who they are at the core of them?
Mm-hmm. I have a question. So it seems like your answer was focused on identity. And with trying to figure out who they are, who they want to be, how can that be possible when it's kind of it's like, well, a black it's kind of like, you know how like black women, black girls, we're always dependent on to be the mom to our siblings. To I think that's honestly the biggest one. So like you have to be, you just have, oftentimes black girls can have a hard time trying to have an identity because they're in survival mode, they're in mom mode. So like how can they even have the time, the space in their mind to even find that?
It's hard, and I don't really have an answer to that, because as you said, it's a society thing, and it's only one
Mm.
person, and it's only like limited organizations or limited people. And so, honey, I don't really have the answer. I just
Yeah.
know that I'm trying the best that I can do
Yeah.
to continue to advocate, continue to educate, continue to break the silence, and continue to hold each black girl that I come in contact with, to help them how to end the divide. And
Mhm.
hopefully they can pass on, and we can create a chain and continue to change throughout the years. And it
Mhm.
frustrates me sometimes. And I'm just like, how do I get everybody? How can I help them all? And how can I get
Yeah.
the adults to see? Because most of the time the problem isn't the children, it's the adults. How
Yeah.
can I get them, my peers, the people that I work
Mhm.
with, the teachers, the administrators, the parents, the community? So it's just really just taking it one day at a time,
Mhm.
one black girl at a time.
Mhm. I know this episode is about black girls. This is something I wanted to say earlier when you were talking about the conversation with your mom. I feel like a lot of my insecurities came from my mom. And I often hear that from black girls, like, uh, you know, they have body image issues, they have eating disorders. Me, I didn't realize I was wearing clothes too big for my body until my partner said something like, I bought you a medium in these pants, but you bought yourself an extra large. And I'm like, well, that's what I wear. But it took someone else from the outside to help me realize, like, wow, what I thought was normal actually isn't. And I think that um, women, black mothers, also need a space where they can um, realize, like, wow, what I was taught was not correct, or the trauma I went through. Like, I think we, as black women, as black mothers, we have to sit down and realize, like, I don't want to continue this cycle. I don't want my child to feel what I felt. But then again, I feel it's a cycle. It's they're distracting themselves from what they feel or their traumas, or it's too deep to address it. But I think it's really important for black mothers to find time to break down your traumas, and even your life today. Because even going back to my mom, she's just like, what do I need to go to therapy for? And it's like, even if you don't feel like something is actively bothering you right now, there's something from your past, even from when you were a child and your parents neglected you. Even though you are 46, there's something still, the child in you is still like, I need a hug. And honestly, that's okay. Just hug her. So I think that's just my message to black moms out there. Like, it's gonna be hard. It's gonna hurt. Trust me, I'm a mom to a boy, but the same thing goes. Like, even though he's about to be 2, I'm working on my patience. I'm working on addressing, speaking up for myself in situations where I feel like I won't be heard. And I feel like fixing that now will help him speak up at the age of 3. And it starts with basic things. Like I mentioned, like I was harassed I was assaulted as a child. And so now I'm teaching him like, this is my P word. And he's able to say that now, even though he says it every time I change his diaper. I want him to be aware of his body. So if anyone does anything to him, he's educated. Children are never too young to understand.
Absolutely. Doing the work is so important. It's just something I realized. So I got tired of myself, and I got tired of bad encounters, bad relationships, bad situations, not knowing my worth and my value. Mm-hmm. So I made the decision to do the work for myself because I wanted to be better for me. I also made a decision to continue to do the work for myself because I do want to have a family one day. And I want to make sure that I am in the right frame of mind to pick the right partner and to be able to be to create a space and home for our children and being that mom. Because I love my mom, but it's the same thing. She's 66 and she needs therapy and things like that. And I had to release myself from her and release myself from wanting her to be what I expected her to be. So loving her for who she is, right? But making sure that I did the work to be better and I do the work to destroy the generational curses so we stop. And that's what I want to tell parents, especially young parents and people who are not parents now, that we can change the generational curses. We can advocate for our schools and our communities, but we have to do the work. And that just comes on continuing to, do podcasts like these, speak out like this, hold ourselves accountable while also holding other people accountable for what they want to see, the change that they want to see.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Like doing the work. One powerful thing about therapy that I think has infiltrated the culture is that we all have work to do. We all have work to do. There are some people who, like how you all shared about your parents, who they may not ever come to therapy, but that doesn't mean that they can't still do the work in another way. But it's still very difficult to be like, this could really help you, right? And so I appreciated both of you all talking about how you're processing the things that happen to you as Black girls, as women, and what you want to do to just break the cycle, break the curses, break the silence, because it is possible. One thing that I do love about Gen Zs and millennials, because everybody talking stuff about us, but we are on fire about breaking those generational curses. We're trying to be better than our parents so that when we become parents, or if we become, or we're community members like you, Chanell, like caring for other Black girls, that we're showing up as our best selves so we can support them to be their best selves. So one thing that I wanted to ask you, Chanell, and I know you've engaged in these different organizations, but what are some other supportive services that can help Black girls? So outside of therapy, are there other activities that we can engage Black girls in that help to support their development and support their mental health?
Absolutely. One is I'm big on health now, just because that's a whole nother conversation and breaking generational curses. But, getting our kids back into cooking classes so they can, cook and learn different healthy measures outside of the Takis and the hot chips and fried cornbread and fried, things that we used to love. Well, I still love. We eat as a community, trying to do better from the fast food. There are free things throughout the summer. Always trying to educate. So good. I know the library's a little different now with Kindles and social media, but getting them back into passes. I know Chicago gives out free passes at the library to go to the aquarium, to go to the different museums out there in the city. Same in Texas. Also not pushing them, but seeing what do they like interest, getting them outside of the house and away from the computer. So one thing, and the screen and the phone. So swimming lessons. I'm big on learning how to swim because I'm a water baby and I love the water. different. So baseball, softball, soccer, dance teams, different type of activities to get their bodies running. Because when you get your bodies running, you get your mind running, and you're away from some of the vices that in our society and on the computer. So those are some things that I wish. I know, people might say funding or finances. Like I said, free resources at the library for them to be able to explore. Summer is a prime time. After school programs, those the schools are still offering them, from tutoring, STEM, technology, just trying to stimulate their mind and get other interests, reading books, different things for them to see. Art, I love art. Coloring, drawing, singing. These are all activities that can have are not as costly as others for them to be able to participate in.
Yeah. I also have some resources. So like I feel like especially these days, hustling is something I often
Entrepreneurship.
see teens doing. So like doing hair, nails, sewing even.
Lashes.
Literally. And I know there is like an overhead cost, but oftentimes the overhead cost is low. Or they're like mutual aid programs, or also even if you're a Black girl listening to this, or a mother or a parent, a guardian of a Black girl, don't be afraid to speak up to like people who work at the schools as resources, because oftentimes there's funding for something like that, or they can create a club. Right now, I work at this place called the Block Chicago, and we are an after school program.
Rub your org.
Yes, and we train kids in boxing, but we also have other enrichment programs like cooking. We do rock climbing. We're doing gardening. We do computer science. We do all types of things. And so y'all should come check us out, especially if you're located on the west side of Chicago. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is the Chicago Tool Library. They are also located on the west side of Chicago near Pulaski and Lake. And they give out tools as big as like a lawnmower to a sewing machine. They even have a LED light for nails. Like they have all types of resources, and you can rent these items out for free, and keep them as long as you need, and just like keep renewing what you have. So not having something could never be the answer, but also just like speaking up to adults, because we will make it happen. We will find a way, no matter what the barrier may be, for teens to get to where they want to be.
Absolutely. I'm glad you said that. I can, because the champion, the entrepreneurship and the business are children. But my kids seem to do nails, hair,
Mm.
braids, all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, y'all can do this at the young age. So
Yeah.
trying that entrepreneurship within them to help to see like how to run a business. And I know there's definitely some resources you can Google and going back to the library, but those can help our children see, even if it's like a stand on a corner or advertising
Mhm.
on social media. They know how to navigate that, and some of them are really really gifted and talented.
Mhm.
Those
One more thing. I know you mentioned social media as something that is negatively impacting the children, but it also has a positive impact, because it's creating jobs. So many people are content creators or social media managers. So if I feel like if you're good, or if your child is good at navigating that, just push them a little bit more, or get them in a group or a club that will help excel their
Cultivate.
skills. Yeah,
Absolutely.
sure.
those are all really great resources and great ways to support Black girls' development, because a lot of people think you just need to send people to therapy, but it's like, no, like all
There's so much.
yeah, there's so much, there's so many things that are enriching that help to really cultivate a good sense of identity, a good
Mhm.
sense of like self-esteem, also just having that additional community support in a positive way just makes such a big difference. So, Chanell, we have an on the couch question where we have someone from our audience who asked us a question that we answered on the podcast. So, the question that I would like you to answer, and DeJada jump in as well, is so what advice would you give your younger self when you experience challenges in life during girlhood?
Who child? Who child? That's a good question. I would tell my younger self, walk in your power, walk in who you are, trust your heart. Know who you are and trust in who you are, and don't let others people's thoughts, opinions change that. Be free from the insecurities. Be free to walk in who you are. Those are my biggest things I'll tell my younger self. Like, um, I can remember times that I would just shrink and shy and dim my light because at times it was too bright for people, or people will try to dim my light, and I will let them do it because I want to be like everybody else. So I would definitely tell younger Chanell, be you. People will appreciate you and being you.
I like that. I like that. Thanks for sharing. Made me tear up.
Yeah.
Be free from the insecurities jack me up, but
Yeah.
I'm okay. I'm learning to be free from the regret and from where I shouldn't have been, just walking to that now. Because shame and regret was like a big thing because you kind of wish you did some things different. But you know, it all cultivates for me to who I am now.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
You should do like to help my Black girls.
Yes. You know, and we're all evidence of what's possible. Like, even though there have been difficult things that have happened in our lives, in our girlhood, we still ended up coming through on the other side. So even though we want to prevent all these difficult things that girls experience, we are also living evidence that you can still work through it and that you don't have to be perfect. And there is still opportunities to grow and become a great woman, like, you know, with being able to address the difficult things in our lives and be like we've all been talking, doing the work. And I hope that everybody who listened to this podcast episode is committed to doing whatever work that they need to do internally, for themselves, but also for our future generations, for our children, and especially our Black girls, because they are just so neglected. And I see it so much in my work, you know, as a social worker, and just the climate right now. And so I appreciate the work that you do, Chanell, to pour into our girls. I appreciate you, DeJada, for all the work that you're doing with youth. And we can help to set this on. We're gonna set this on the right track. I feel it. Chanell, how can people get connected to you? How can people find you if they want to learn more about your work and your practice?
Absolutely. So I am the owner of Tina & Co. Consulting PLLC. So you can find us on Instagram at Teen & Co. Wellness. You can find us on Facebook at Teen & Co. Wellness and Consulting PLLC. You can also check out our website at www.teenandcowellness.com. And you can also email me at info@teenandcowellness.com as well, and to get in touch. So I look forward to speaking with those, continuing to advocate, and continue to break the silence and helping our Black girls.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Chanell. So we always end.
Yes, like
yes.
Be like free. Be free myself too. Like I love it. I love it.
Thank you so much for being here. We always end with some quick tips. We are the Quick Tip Podcast. So, DeJada, do you have any quick tips that you want to leave about how we can support Black girls' mental health?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I would say for guardians of Black girls, do some deep dive self reflection. So the things that you've internalized that you maybe should not have, you don't continue that cycle for your Black girl. And for Black girls, I don't even like. I think I'm struggling to find a quick tip for Black girls because I'm picturing myself as a Black girl. I know this is supposed to be a quick tip. I'm sorry. And I'm like, as a child, it just feels like you have very little power, or that's what I felt like. You are powerful. That's my quick tip to Black girls. You are powerful. You are meaning. You are great. You are amazing. No matter what anyone tells you, you are a beautiful, powerful person. Yeah, that's my quick tip.
My quick tip, love, pouring and instilling love, care, and support into our girls is how we show up for them. All of us know a Black girl that we can pour into with love, care, and support, and it makes a tremendous difference. And also, for a quick tip for a Black girl listening to this podcast, is that where you started doesn't have to be where you end up.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for another episode of the Quick Tip Podcast. Chanell, thank you so
proud
much.
of you, ladies. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for being here. Thank you all for your vulnerability, for your honesty. This isn't an easy topic, but it has to be talked about. And I just appreciate all of us today for just showing up and being honest and being transparent about our lives as Black girls, and also to shine a light on what's happening to Black girls all across the country. So thank you for tuning in to the Quick Tip. We'll be back with more episodes about the Black family. Take care of all of you and be well.
Thank you for tuning in to the Quick Tip Podcast with Sister Afia. Stay connected with us by following us on Instagram and Facebook at Sister Afia. Join us for one of our upcoming groups, classes, or workshops, and sign up for therapy if you're an Illinois resident at www.sisterafia.com/services. And if you enjoyed this episode, do us a favor and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We greatly appreciate you for being a part of our community, and we look forward to connecting with you soon. Take care.